welcome, Bharat, onto this session where we wanted to understand a little bit about your journey. So if you could
Right.
just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, it'll be great.
All right. So I am an engineer, but however, I didn't go towards that path of engineering. I wanted to go into retail for some reason. So in a nutshell, for the past 5 years, I've been working in retail, and in particular, e-grocery, online delivery to the customer's doorstep. I was
Okay.
working there for about 4 years, in that particular field. So I like working in supply chain and operations.
Mm.
However, I felt I needed to, get a degree at some point, become, certify my skill in the field because I enjoy working in it. So I wanted a graduate degree. Initially, my focus was on getting an MBA, but with the kind of work that I was doing on the ground, it was more suited for a supply chain kind of situation. So for 2 to 3 years, I actually failed with most of my applications trying to, get through with on a supply chain background. I realized I was applying to MBAs, and I think a conversation with you that I had, where what I was thinking was actually quite all right. I mean, you helped me show the direction you pushed me in that direction. So I decided to apply to supply chain schools after that conversation with you, and it's worked out much better as a result.
All
So
right.
that's a little bit about myself, that journey. I hope that encompasses what you were expecting.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So when you say 3 to 4 years in the supply chain, like what exactly was your role, and what were you responsible for? So you said 5 years in supply chain, right? After your
So the job primarily, the responsibility was simple. From the time a customer places his or her grocery order to delivery to the customer's doorstep, that entire life chain and process. I was the senior manager of supply chain operations for a grocery company in Gurgaon.
Okay.
So that was my main responsibility. Slowly, there were gamut of things that I'd learned, because this is the start of that startup boom. When a lot of these online players have started to come onto the scene.
Right.
So my role became a little more important, especially as people are ordering groceries online, and with COVID that exploded. So from that time, from those 4 years, I've worked in companies, and I've worked my way to the top. I'm currently head of operations for all of
Awesome.
Starkwick stores in India currently. With that mentality, I thought I've learned a lot. I need to certify that skill. So yeah, that really summarizes my work.
Tell me about your GMAT journey. So, how has that been, and, how did you go about it?
So at totally 5 attempts I've made at the GMAT. My fifth attempt, I finally hit a 690. So the previous 4 attempts were 510s to 630. And I needed, something that'll help me, get closer to the 690 to 710. I wasn't expecting a 730. With the amount of work that I was doing, and I know I couldn't, divert, perfect or sacrifice a lot of time. I didn't have disposable time here because of my work. So I know I just needed to get to that 700 mark in my head. So Crackverbal actually helped with that. So my verbal score was low. I think I signed up with Abhishek, and he helped me push my verbal score all the way up to the 35s or 36 marks. Everything I needed to get that 690. And with that score, I use that as a reference. I didn't want to put in more effort and time into getting a 740. It wasn't meant for me. It's fine. It's cool. It's like I'll settle with it. And then yeah. That's basically my GMAT journey.
All right. I just wanted to, understand a little bit more, right? So most of the students, right, the biggest concern or the problem with them is um, managing this whole preparation along with work, right?
Yeah.
So how did you actually manage that? And, if you have to go back and maybe do it again, what would be your advice to your fellow aspirants?
It's you have to sacrifice. I think that's the one thing. That preparation time, with whatever duration that is, it can be 6 months, 1 month, 2 months, but you have to just sacrifice, outings, things you'd usually do with your free time. You have to change how you sleep. When you wake up, you don't have to be brilliant. You just have to put in the effort So a little bit of sacrifice really goes a long way, and you kind of see the after effects of doing all of that. So um, I think there are hundreds of guides of how you want to learn for the GMAT. I'm not a professional, I'm not an expert, but from my experience, I think it's always good to keep trying and not giving up. And if you hit a point, you don't have to compare yourself with other people. I think as Indians, unfortunately, we tend to look at 720s and those numbers defining who you are as a person. Not It doesn't have to be that way. So with that, you should go in freely, sacrifice a lot, and then just give it all test day and just hope for the best, I guess.
Interesting that you said that, right? Sacrifice. Now, typically when somebody who's doing so well in a career, right?
Yeah.
Have there been points where you said, I just want to give up and, let me just continue with whatever I'm doing because, it's just getting too tough. And how do you deal with such a situation?
It's like, okay, fine. I watch a lot of football. So, I mean, when you see most football teams, they fail at finals about 3-4 times. So I mean, I've grown up watching so many of these kind of heartbreaks, and if there's a setback, you just give it a day, relax, go for a run, forget that you wrote the exam. The next day, see what you feel, then it'll come back. I mean, you can't stay sad for so long. So every time you fail, you just have to fight. The trick is getting up from it, I think. So, you want to give it up, but you just keep getting up and trying, that's basically it.
True. In terms of your GMAT preparation, right? What time did you realize that you needed? So was it after your fourth attempt that you felt that now I think I should really take some personal help? And, how did you find Crackverbal?
Through all those 4 attempts, my quant score was actually near the 50s. It hit 50 once, in fact, 51 almost. My verbal score was always lagging. It was at the 27, 28 mark. I don't know. I would have this brain freeze moment in the exam sometimes. I can't explain it. Anyway, that I knew to get from a 26 to a 36 verbal, I needed that help. So I think those classes with Abhishek, especially, over 6 of them, they were grueling. It was basically me rewiring how I'm looking at questions in the first place. I'm approaching things wrong. It's a lot of strategy, and it doesn't require so much brain power. Also, it's just a lot of tips and tricks that came into the game because of those sessions with Crackverbal. That's why I think that pushed it to that mark, 690.
Right. How did you get to Crackverbal? I mean, how did you find us?
Through testimonials, actually. I think I went through a huge list of uh, on LinkedIn, and a bunch of them. A lot of them were associated with Crackverbal as well. And then, I mean, I went through the site and I decided, okay, the process is fairly quick, registering everything. So I was really looking for that. And Abhishek was a great teacher also.
Right. In terms of verbal, right? CR, SC, RC, which was your biggest pain point?
CR for some reason. So I could read fine. I could sentence correction. In fact, I hit 99 percentile on that once. But CR always, for me, is I don't know, it's a bit of a black hole sometimes.
So what changed? How did the personal tutoring change? So was there something that you remember from those sessions that you felt that this is something that I never did when I was preparing earlier?
Yeah, I think to give it to you one answer, the CR questions, he, we tried to make it mathematical. Anything mathematical for me was easy. So he made, like, I think one of the processes were to look at it like a problem. There are ways you can turn this into a mathematical problem as well. So I think that really helped, made things a lot easier to look at the question and okay, this is where it is. So that was the easing that helped me push that score a bit.
Right. So, how did you feel, once on the D-Day when you see that score on the screen where you say 690 finally, what was your feeling and, what went in your mind?
Honestly, that fifth attempt, I don't remember. I assumed, okay, this is one of those attempts, maybe the next time. And then it turns up on the screen. I was hoping for a 700. So psychologically, there's a little bit, of an age. But I looked at 690 and I went, okay, I wasn't expecting that at all. I was really expecting another 590. I don't know what was going through my head. So I saw it. I was happy. I was elated. Done. I'm content.
Right, right. So, from after you got your GMAT score, what is the kind of research you? So, were you always focused on, or you were still focused on doing an MS in supply chain, or you were still at a point where you were deciding through an MBA versus an MS in supply chain?
So ever since I got that score, I think I applied for 2 successive years. I kept failing. I was looking at MBAs the entire time. ISB I tried twice. That didn't work out. Although I really felt that my application was quite good that time. So I was feeling a little hard done by. Then the next year again it happened. So then I thought, okay, I can't let this drag on. So I need professional help for my application as well. Is that, I mean, you look beyond the essay, things you write and the other things.
Mm.
So I know I needed some sort of help for that. That's when I checked, okay, and most MBAs don't take operations people like myself. A lot of them go into that consulting and finance background. So I looked at it from their perspective as well. Then how do they sell me after I graduate from whichever college, right? So I looked at the easier option. The supply chain courses are there. I like working in supply chain. So why not? Let's go for it. So that's when I reached out to Crackverbal's application team as well.
Mm. So, what was the process like? And, can you tell me what was your process with the mentor, and a little bit about what so a lot of students who come back to us, they say this process is always a stage of introspection also, because, it's not just about writing essays, but you discuss a lot, you think a lot,
Yeah.
you research a lot. How was your process, and, whom did you work with, and how was, the whole process?
Okay, so before I reached out, I had narrowed it down to about, once I knew I was going to specialize in supply chain and operations, I just narrowed it down, looked at some of the best colleges ranking wise. I saw many that I did recognize, such as MIT and Ross.
Hmm.
However, I mean, it's not that I'm pessimistic, but I just didn't apply to MIT. I just wanted to be safe. I didn't want a rejection. I didn't want to make that my. So Ross was my dream school. Then a couple of others that I shortlisted, and I think I had submit that thinking. That thought process was quite easy. As soon as you decide that you want to specialize in something, then the search becomes easier. So I submitted those 3 colleges, I think, to Kirtana, and Kirtana from Crackverbal introduced me to Sherin, who was extremely helpful throughout the entire application process. So yeah, that was the introspection phase. I think I was blessed with not having to do too much thinking. I already had a set guideline, and I told you which direction that I needed to go, and then Crackverbal also took it that same way.
Right, right. So, when we looked at, your profile and matching you with the mentor, we also wanted to make sure that, our mentor was from supply chain at Apple, right? So she's a supply chain manager at Apple. How much of that did help you, her background help you with, your process, and even understanding a little bit more about supply chain, that because, you worked in a very Indian setup, right? It was Indian customers, Indian delivery process. But when you look at a global supply chain, it is still very different.
Yeah.
So, how did you, what was your experience over there, and what were the key insights that you had throughout the process?
Okay, just to give you an example, if I would write something that she and I would understand in supply chain terms, like on time or fill rates, things like that, then she would say that, these are team terms that people who are not well versed in supply chain don't understand.
Right.
Let's change that up a bit, something that's understandable. Words
Mhm.
like optimization, that's usually, parlance for both Sharon and I at our workplaces. She would turn that up and say, I don't think this works well with this context. So she gave a lot of pointed advice. That's yeah, it really helped, the fact that I was with someone in the supply chain field.
Right, right. Did you get to speak to alums, or, as part of your research while applying to these schools? What was the research you did for the schools that you wanted to apply to?
So amongst all the schools, Ross was a dream school. One, because they had a action based learning method.
Mm.
They had a lot of other centers that are not just theory focused, but you get to network a lot more. So that was very attractive to me. That was my dream school from the start. I felt no other colleges had the same kind of detail into the supply chain course. And then I had two others. I think Purdue, which I chose. It was, I think, ranked higher, and they have an excellent 18th month course as well.
Mm.
And the third one, I think, was USC Marshall, which I didn't eventually apply to because these two acceptances came through.
Okay.
So yeah, that was how that happened. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So out of the three schools you applied, two schools you applied, you got acceptance from both the schools?
From both the schools, yes, I got
Okay.
acceptance to both Purdue and Ross.
Process. So from the time you submitted the, interview, submitted your application to the interview stage, how long was that duration?
Okay, application to interview. Application, I think I submitted sometime in November, and I think by January they came back to me with an interview call. Both Purdue and Ross, both of them happened to respond immediately.
Hmm.
And following that, I think there was a. Oh, Purdue is actually very interesting. They have something called a KIRA interview, which I think is some colleges
Yeah,
are
that's
adopt.
it. Yeah.
So I thought that was a very fun version of an interview because there are no wrong answers and there were quite fun questions as well. Things like would you be uh, if we gave you a lot of money, which part of the world would you go to? Random questions like that, and you have to answer on the spot. I thought that was a great version of the interview,
Hmm.
of the entire admission process. So Purdue had that, and then the final interview with that other individual. Purdue's, in fact, they sent the name of the person who would interview me as well. So that allowed me to do a lot of research of what he or she has done, the interviewer. So at the end of the session, in fact, we talked a lot more about her hobbies, throughout the interview as well. So I thought the entire Purdue application process is very smooth, very concise, they were very communicative throughout. Ross
Hmm.
was a little harder in terms of the once I got the confirmation from the interview to the final interview day, there were a bunch of other processes in between. They were very meticulous and very concise with their interview. It just lasted in 30 minutes, and I didn't know if I would get in or not. I really had my doubts. So overall, I think about 60 days from start of application to the end, from
Okay.
November and ended it in Feb, the final decision.
Right. So for Ross, was it again an alum or somebody from the admissions team who interviewed you?
Admissions team, someone from the admissions team.
Okay. Okay.
From both actually, Purdue and Ross, both from the admissions team.
So now, you join in August this year, right?
Right.
That's when the academic.
I think July or June. I think I've accepted Ross officially.
Hmm.
I think that we have to be on campus, I think, on June 28th or something. That
Okay.
period.
Hmm.
So yeah, getting ready to apply and get my passport, all that organized. So that's exciting stuff.
Right. Right. Awesome. Awesome. Are you doing any kind of pre-masters courses or anything that you have thought of to be more, equipped for the program as of now?
I started learning Spanish. So, if I'm going to work in supply chain and operations, I need to be comfortable with most of the local languages. So English is all right. I just thought I'd start off with Spanish, just conversational ones, and then I'm doing a lot of preparation stuff. Like I'm going through some textbooks already, trying to get a sense of what kind of lessons will come through. Never had a theoretical side to things. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing, and a lot of traveling. I think I'll be doing a lot of traveling before I leave. That
Yes.
is well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Hopefully, the corona things goes, the pandemic effect is gone now and US comes back to normal. So, things should be, what is the school saying is how is the next term going to be for them?
So with the vaccinations that are going out, I spoke to both of the admissions team for us. They said that with the number of vaccinations that are coming through, with the number of cases that have plummeted overall in the US,
Mm.
we're looking at maybe conservatively, 100% residential, life at Ross. So
Awesome.
it won't be just online classes as well. It'll be back to the old. I think things have already started going back to that. So
Right. Right.
so where I'm hopeful, and some, because of the new administration coming in as well, they have some pointed guidelines of international visitors. India is good to go for
Mm.
students as of now. So all good. So as of now,
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad actually. The best thing that happened, last year, and what you planned, I think perfectly, is when the market is down, you focused on putting that time into your GMAT
yeah,
preparation and focusing on applying, so that when things are now getting to normal, you are ready to actually invest your time in proper education. Getting into one of the top schools, and from the beginning of the interview, you kept saying Ross was your dream school. Ross was your dream school. So I'm so glad that you got into the school of your choice.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Bharat. This has been amazing talking to
Right.
you.